The next speaker is Dr. Sami Miaari from the Department of Labor Studies at the Tel Aviv University. You can do this from the podium. 13 minutes. Hello, everybody. I will pick up where Yoel left off, and I think that this was a good sequence. Is labor a remedy for poverty? I think the answer is yes. But is it sufficient? The answer is no. I'm going to provide you with some findings and data pointing to the fact that in Israeli society it is not enough to have two wage earners in the same household, but you also have to take care of other things. So I chose to speak about poverty in Arab society because the large portion of Israeli poor are Arabs, and to look at gender issues within Arab society and within the labor market, and would a gender change within Arab society have the ability to reduce poverty? If we look at employment among men in Arab society, we see, of course, generally speaking, but also among Arabs, employment has been on the rise since 2003, and it is constant rise because of the social security allowances, which made people go to the labor market before that they left it. The employment rates among Arab men are low, but but the difference with the other population is not so big. Do you have a question? So the reason for the difference between Arabs and Jews, Jewish men, there are many reasons. One of them is the concentration of Arab men in professions that are blue collar usually. On average, at the age of 50, they have to leave the labor market because their work is very hard. Of course, there is something else. Arab men work usually in professions that are not compatible with their education. I would like to show you the last study of the Israel Democracy Institute that points out the impact of non-compatibility of education and employment, and that has an impact on inequality and on discrimination. Arab men also focus on, Arab men focus on professions that provide low wages. With women, the gaps are much greater. But what we can see from this graph is that there is a constant rise. It is moderate, but I think it is still impressive in the participation of Arab women in the labor market. Of course, today we're talking about 32% of Arab women that are employed. The government's target in the next 5 years is to reach 43%, but I don't think we can reach that. The reasons for the lower participation of Arab women are multiple, but we can point out lower education, geographic distance from the center of Israel where employment is high, and of course the gender roles, the traditional gender roles, which prevents women from going to the labor market. You can see it here. The participation of Jewish women, who usually live in a liberal society with a developed economy, is one of the highest, even higher than other OECD countries, while the level of participation of Arab women is completely incompatible with Israeli society. It is more like the society of Mid-Eastern countries and North African countries. So here we can point out the importance of gender roles, traditional gender roles, as an obstacle for the employment of Arab women. But I must say that in recent years, this has become weaker. Arab women are more focus more on work within their place of dwelling, or their cities, their own cities and villages. For example, sales, services, and of course, education and health. In addition to these gaps in wages, in national gaps in Israel, you also have gender gaps, which compounds the suffering of working Arab women. All this data of working in professions that provide low wages contribute to the poverty, relative poverty of the Arab and Jewish households. Even when both people are working, both spouses are working, still the average income is lower. And of course, the data shows a rise in employment both among Jewish men and Arab women and Arab men. But this rise was not translated into a decrease in the poverty levels. We saw a rise there, and probably this has not been checked. This may be contradictory to some of Yoel's findings, but the income of households in recent decades did not rise sufficiently according to the median wages. And so these poor families remained below the poverty line.
Furthermore, one can see that the poverty rates in the Israeli society is relatively high, but this is due mainly to the Arab sector and the ultra-Orthodox sector. The Arabs, the number of families under the poverty line has reached last year 53.6%. And the depth of poverty and its gravity in the Arab sector is much higher than in the Jewish sector. That is why the transfer payments of the government has a relatively restricted impact in the Arab sector. In 2014, for instance, after the transfer payments, the poverty rate in Jewish families goes from 24% to 13%. On the other hand, with Arab families, it goes from 57.2 to 52%. So what's the story behind this? Is it this transfer payments, or is it work? Is it labor? One more piece of data, of information, the poverty rates according to genders. Women suffer much more in the Israeli economy from poverty rates as opposed to men. These are not households. These are individuals from 18 years of age and up. These are not households. So the entry of women into the labor market, can it modify the, can it heal in terms of the labor market? Yes, it can, but not enough. The reduction, we can witness the reduction of poverty in families where the woman is working as compared to families where she is not. Two important facts. On the one hand, in the family where the woman joins the labor market, it is not surprising, but this does not guarantee that the family will come off poverty. But if we look at it at the long range, a woman who goes to work, she will have less children. So maternity rates will be lower, and so in the long run, the poverty rates will decrease. As for the first point, The answer is, my answer, that we should always bear in mind that employment alone is not the only condition required to take people off poverty, especially in the Arab sector, where the labor opportunities are lesser and the quality of work is lesser than in the Arab sector. In the years 2009 to 2013, we know that unemployment general rates in the economy went down. The poverty. But poverty in families with two earners have gone up, especially in the Arab sector, and the gap between the Arab sector and the ultra-Orthodox families has gone further up. So my conclusion here is that there are many families within the Arab sector who have joined the labor market, but their earnings did not significantly change, or not enough to take them out of the poverty. And I will conclude by one sentence, namely that it is not enough to enable the woman to go out to work in the Arab society, but one should guarantee equality employment opportunities, and that has to connect to the programs of the government. Yes, there is a program, a 5-year program of 2.5 billion shekels, but that is not enough to provide an orientation and vocational training for women in the Arab sector. I'll give you an example of what happens in the Arab settlements. There is a lot of orientation and vocational training to allow women to integrate in existing jobs. How is this done? When they, for instance, they have realized that cosmetics is very popular in the Arab sector, so they open a course of training, but how many of those can the market absorb, integrate in this profession? So they should provide adequate orientation and vocational training, and to promote employment by developing employment zones in the Arab sector, not in traditional work jobs, but rather in capital-intensive occupations and jobs. Thank you.